All right, so today we're going to unpack some serious political drama.
Oh, yeah.
President Trump's recent cabinet nominee confirmation hearings. And we're not just talking about, filling a few empty seats here.
Yeah.
These are some high-stakes positions.
Absolutely.
And the tension during these hearings, well, you could practically cut it with a knife.
Yeah, what's so fascinating to me is that we're kind of seeing like a microcosm of the current political landscape playing out right in front of us.
Yeah.
These hearings are like a window into the deep divisions, the ideological clashes, and the real human stories that are shaping the national conversation.
Okay, so let's dive into one of the biggest controversies then.
Okay.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s nomination for the Secretary of Health and Human Services.
Huge role.
I mean, that's a huge GE role.
Yeah.
Overseeing all of American healthcare.
Hmm.
And his past statements on vaccines have really put him in the hot seat.
Absolutely. Kennedy's views on vaccines have drawn intense scrutiny from both sides of the aisle. In fact, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse bluntly told Kennedy that you frighten people when it comes to this issue.
Yeah, and it's not just Senator Sanders really pressed him about the no vax, no problem baby onesies.
Oh, yeah.
Sold by the Children's Health Defense.
Yeah.
An organization Kennedy founded.
Right.
For people who might not be up on all the political jargon,
right.
The Children's Health Defense is a group that's known for promoting, let's just say, alternative views on vaccines. Mm-hmm. So that's adding fuel to the fire a little bit.
It raises a crucial question. Can someone with that kind of history effectively lead the Department of Health and Human Services?
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to public health messaging on vaccines.
Right.
Imagine the impact if the person in charge of communicating about vaccines is someone who's been accused of spreading misinformation.
That's a really good point. It makes you think about the level of trust and credibility that's needed for that position.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just about Kennedy's past actions. It's also about his understanding of key healthcare policies.
Okay.
During the hearings, Kennedy's grasp of Medicaid, a program that provides health care to millions of Americans, was also called into question.
Wait, hold on. Are we talking about the same Medicaid?
Yeah.
The one that provides health coverage to low-income families and individuals?
That's the one.
What was the issue there?
Well, Kennedy made some surprising statements, to say the least.
Okay.
He incorrectly described how Medicaid is funded.
Oh, wow.
And falsely claimed it has high premiums and deductibles.
Those monthly fees and out-of-pocket costs that you typically see with private insurance?
Exactly.
Wow, so he got some pretty basic facts wrong. That's not a good look for someone who might be in charge of the whole program.
It certainly raised eyebrows. And it wasn't just the inaccuracies.
Okay.
Kennedy also proposed some pretty significant reforms to Medicaid, suggesting experiments with pilot programs in each state.
Interesting.
He even floated ideas like incorporating value-based care, health cooperatives, and health savings accounts.
Okay, so for our listeners who aren't healthcare policy wonks,
right,
could you break down some of those terms?
Sure.
What's value-based care, for example?
So value-based care is a model that aims to shift the focus from the quantity of healthcare services provided to the quality of care. It's about rewarding healthcare providers for positive patient outcomes rather than just the number of procedures they perform.
Okay.
Sounds good in theory, but there are concerns about how it would actually work in practice, especially for a program as complex as Medicaid.
And what about those health cooperatives and health savings accounts?
Yeah.
Are those related to value-based care?
They can be part of the equation.
Okay.
Health cooperatives are member-owned organizations that provide healthcare services.
Gotcha.
And health savings accounts are tax-advantaged savings accounts that people can use to pay for medical expenses.
Okay.
Kennedy seemed to be suggesting a move towards a more market-oriented approach to Medicaid, with individuals having more control over their healthcare spending.
That's a pretty big departure from the current structure of Medicaid. It raises the question of whether such a shift would truly benefit the people who rely on the program, or if it would create more barriers to care.
Exactly. And this gets to the heart of the broader debate that emerged during the hearings, the role of government in healthcare.
Yeah, it seems like that's a recurring theme in American politics.
It is.
But aren't there often nuances within each party?
Yeah.
It's not always a simple black and white divide, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. There are definitely nuances. However, in these hearings, the partisan lines were pretty clear.
Okay.
Democrats expressed serious concerns about potential cuts to Medicaid, especially with Kennedy's reform ideas on the table. They also worried about the possibility of repealing the Inflation Reduction Act,
right,
which, for our listeners who may not be familiar, is a major piece of legislation that aimed to lower drug prices,
right,
in part by letting Medicare negotiate directly with pharmaceutical companies.
So the Democrats are generally in favor of a more active role for the government in ensuring access to affordable health care.
Exactly.
And what about the Republicans? Where do they stand on this?
Well, in these hearings, Republicans emphasized the need to lower healthcare costs overall, echoing some of Kennedy's points about reforming Medicaid. They argued for less government intervention and more market-based solutions, emphasizing individual choice and competition.
So we're seeing these classic ideological differences playing out on a very public stage.
Absolutely.
It's like a microcosm of the larger healthcare debate that's happening across the country.
Exactly. And it's not just about abstract policy ideas. These debates have real-world consequences for millions of Americans who rely on programs like Medicaid and Medicare.
It makes you realize the weight of the decisions that are being made in these hearings, right?
It does.
These aren't just political games.
Right.
These decisions impact people's lives.
Absolutely. And it's a reminder that we need to stay informed and engaged in these discussions. We can't afford to be passive observers.
Right.
The future of healthcare is at stake.
It really is.
Wow.
It's clear that healthcare is a major battleground. But were there any other key issues that came up during these hearings?
Oh, absolutely. These confirmation hearings weren't just about policy debates.
Right.
They also offered some truly captivating personal moments.
Okay.
Howard Lutnick, nominated for Commerce Secretary, gave an incredibly emotional testimony about losing his brother in the 9/11 terrorist attacks.
It's hard to even imagine the pain of that loss, let alone speaking about it so publicly.
It was incredibly moving.
Yeah.
He shared how his brother Gary was working at the World Trade Center that day.
Right.
And tragically, 657 of his friends and colleagues at his financial firm, Cantor Fitzgerald, also perished.
That's heartbreaking. It makes you think about the ripple effects of such a tragedy, how it touches so many lives.
It really does. And for Lutnick, it seems that this experience has fueled a deep sense of purpose, a desire to serve. He stated, "I made the decision that I've made enough money in my life. I can take care of myself. I can take care of my family. It is now my chance to serve the American people."
So even amidst the political maneuvering, there are these deeply personal stories that remind us of the human cost of events like 9/11 and how they shape people's lives.
Right.
It adds another layer of complexity to these hearings, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly does. And speaking of complexity,
Okay.
let's turn to another nominee whose hearing took a rather dramatic turn.
Okay.
Kelly Loeffler, nominated to lead the Small Business Administration.
Okay, what happened there?
Well, Senator Ed Markey directly accused President Trump of illegal actions.
Oh, wow.
Specifically pointing to the firing of inspectors general and the freezing of funds. He even said to Loeffler, "It's not as though he won't ask you to do something illegal and unconstitutional. He's been doing it all week. And this is the first week."
Wow, throwing down the gauntlet like that. What was Loeffler's response?
She immediately defended President Trump, insisting that his actions were completely legal. It became this fascinating back and forth, raising questions about executive power, the boundaries of loyalty, and what's considered acceptable conduct in the political arena.
So we have these clashes over healthcare policy, these raw displays of emotion, and then this underlying tension about legality, ethics, and where personal loyalties fit into the equation. It really does feel like these hearings are a microcosm of American politics as a whole.
I think you're spot on. It's all there. The partisan divides, the battles over policy, the questions of accountability, and the struggle to define what's acceptable behavior for those in power.
Okay, so we've explored these contentious nominations, the policy clashes, and the glimpses of raw human emotion. What does it all mean? Where do we go from here?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? What we've witnessed in these confirmation hearings could be just the opening act in what promises to be a long and complex drama.
Yeah.
We're likely to see continued battles over healthcare, the role of government, and perhaps even the very definition of what's acceptable in American politics.
It makes you realize just how important it is to stay informed, to understand these issues, and to think critically about who we want representing us and making decisions on our behalf.
Couldn't agree more. We need to be engaged citizens, asking questions, holding our leaders accountable, and participating in the process.
Right.
These hearings are a powerful reminder of that.
You know, we've talked extensively about Kennedy and Loeffler, but weren't there other nominees in these hearings? Did any of their testimony stand out?
There were several other nominees, and one in particular left a lasting impression.
Oh, tell me more. I'm always intrigued by the human side of these political events.
This was Howard Lutnick, the nominee for Commerce Secretary.
Okay.
His testimony was incredibly moving. He spoke about losing his brother in the 9/11 attacks.
Oh, wow. That must have been incredibly difficult to hear.
It was clear that he was still deeply affected by the tragedy. He talked about taking his son to kindergarten that morning, which is why he wasn't at the World Trade Center himself.
Right.
He said because of that experience, he felt a profound sense of duty to serve the American people.
That's a powerful realization to come from such a horrific experience.
It really is. He said, I made the decision that I've made enough money in my life. I can take care of myself. I can take care of my family. It is now my chance to serve the American people.
It's a reminder that even amidst the political battles and ideological divides, there are real people with real stories. Their lives are shaped by these events, and their motivations are often driven by deeply personal experiences.
Exactly. It's easy to get caught up in the political gamesmanship, but ultimately these hearings are about people.
It makes you think about the weight of the decisions these nominees might have to make, the impact their actions will have on people's lives.
And it makes you wonder, how do these hearings reflect the state of American politics today?
That's a great question. What do you think?
Well, it seems to me that these hearings are a microcosm of the larger forces at play. We're seeing a deep polarization, a struggle over fundamental values, and a real questioning of authority and accountability.
It's almost like these confirmation hearings are a pressure cooker, bringing all these tensions to the surface.
Yes, and it's forcing us to confront some uncomfortable truths about ourselves, about our political system, and about the future we're creating.
It's a lot to process, to be honest.
It is. But I think it's important to wrestle with these questions, to not shy away from the complexity, the discomfort.
I agree. And to remember that at the heart of all this, there are real people whose lives are being impacted by these decisions.
Exactly. We can't forget that.
It feels like we're at a crossroads, with so much uncertainty and division surrounding these hearings and American politics in general.
It certainly does. And it's in moments like these that we need to be most vigilant and engaged.
Right.
These confirmation hearings are like a call to action, a reminder that the future isn't, predetermined.
Yeah.
We actively shape it through our choices, our actions, our willingness to participate.
So what can we do? What's our role in all of this?
Yeah.
It's easy to feel like our voices don't matter.
I understand that feeling, but I believe every voice matters. Every active engagement, no matter how small, contributes to the larger conversation. We can contact our representative, we can participate in local organizations, we can engage in conversations with friends and family, and use our voices to advocate for the policies and the future we believe in.
You're right. It's easy to feel overwhelmed and succumb to apathy, but we can't afford to do that.
Yeah.
The stakes are too high.
Mm-hmm.
What stood out to you from these hearings?
Well, I think the first step is to stay informed.
Okay.
These hearings provided a wealth of information.
Right.
But it's up to us to dig deeper, go beyond the headlines and sound bites, and be critical thinkers. We need to question assumptions, consider different perspectives, and engage in thoughtful dialogue.
It's like doing our own deep dive, so to speak,
Precisely.
into these issues.
It's not enough to just accept what we're told. We need to listen to each other, understand the complexities.
These confirmation hearings have been a wild ride. A mix of political maneuvering, policy debates, powerful personal stories.
It has been.
What's the biggest takeaway you hope our listeners will walk away with?
I think the key takeaway is this. Our democracy is a work in progress. It requires constant attention and engagement. It's up to all of us to ensure that it reflects our values, our hopes, our vision for the future.
Yeah.
How will we use our voices? How will we contribute to the ongoing dialogue? These are questions we should be asking ourselves.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into President Trump's recent cabinet nominee confirmation hearings. It's been quite a journey. Remember, knowledge is power, but only if we use it wisely. Stay curious, stay engaged, and keep asking those tough questions. Until next time.